But first, earlier this year, our economics correspondent Paul Solman profiled Elizabeth White. She was once comfortably middle class, but found herself struggling to make ends meet as she got older. Paul recently checked back in with White and discovered that her story has touched a nerve. It's part of our series, Making Sense, which airs every Thursday.
Every Sunday afternoon, Elizabeth White heads to Malcolm X Park near her home in Washington, D.C. for a therapy session with a drum circle.
I can work it all out in that park and just dance. And it's festive and it's free.
We first met White in January after she just self-published a book, 55 Unemployed and Faking Normal.
Everybody is pretending.
And that's why you call the book Faking Normal.
Right. Because there's a lot of pressure to seem like you are doing well.
In fact, White had long been on the edge of the financial cliff. Despite a career at the World Bank, graduate degrees from Johns Hopkins and Harvard, she'd been unable to find steady work since the Great Recession. She'd once made 6 figures, but she now struggled to pay the mortgage on her townhouse.
But you haven't been in a situation where you literally couldn't afford whatever it is, the condo fee or...
Oh, absolutely, I have. I'm right now have to park outside because I'm in arrears on the condo fee. Right now.
And she'd refinanced to the hilt, taken in a boarder.
Well, you haven't used food stamps.
But I have. I've had to.
White worked scattered freelance gigs, but still had to borrow money from friends like neighborhood free spirit Elijah, a clothing minimalist.
I'm not a things person. How much money do you think I'm spending on my attire? Okay.
White is far from alone, as we learned at what she calls her resilience circle. Deborah Burkholder hadn't had a full-time job since 2009.
Don't have enough to cover January bills if nothing changes. It's hard to predict what will happen the next month. And, in calculating how many times do I have to go through this until I'm buried.
9 months later, the economy has improved with the weather. Although overall unemployment ticked up in August, it's at a low 4.4%. Still, more than 30% of job seekers over age 55 have been out of work for more than half a year. No wonder White's story has resonated in the months since her appearance on the NewsHour.
Spoke to groups in San Francisco, in Boston, in Memphis.
So you've become the voice of Faking Normal.
I'm becoming a voice for sure. Even as
White has done a number of paid speaking gigs. She even did a TEDx talk in July.
We live in a world where success is defined by income. When you say that you have money problems, you're announcing pretty much that you're a loser. When you're a graduate of Harvard Business School, as I am, you're some kind of double loser.
The talk has about 100,000 views already.
I'm getting a lot of thank you for just bringing this topic up. I thought I was by myself. I get a few emails every day of stories of what's happening to people.
What is happening to people?
People are worried. Someone wrote me that they had to move out of their housing into subsidized housing. They never expected to land there. They had to give up their car. They're doing jobs that they never expected that they would have to do, dog walking and all of this.
Have you become more reassured about yourself as you encounter more and more people who have had the same experience?
I have become more convinced that I'm doing the work I'm supposed to do. I did a great consultancy since I saw you with Senior Service America, helping low-income, older adults find work.
As part of her work with the group, White went to speak to ex-factory workers in rural Martin, Tennessee.
The factory had been, China, Mexico, outsourced somewhere. And then they were left at 50, 55, 57, maybe with a high school education, maybe a little bit of college. And they were jettisoned out of the workforce. And I got a standing ovation there. And then the Great Recession hit. 2 weeks before that, I was at an event at MIT. These were former high earners, long-term unemployed, and hearing the two conversations close together, they were almost exactly the same. It didn't matter whether you gave up salmon or catfish. It was the same conversation.
So were you surprised when you went to Martin, Tennessee and saw that factory workers were feeling and talking exactly the same way?
I have a very urban appearance.
Yes, you
do. You know, I got the hair, a diamond nose bow. You know, I didn't know kind of how this was. And none of it mattered. None of it mattered.
Because they had been faking normal too.
If faking normal means that you're not sharing with people candidly what's happening to you and what you're afraid of, yes. I had a situation here where I spoke and a woman jumped up, screaming and crying, running out of the room. And what she said is, "You are telling my story. How did you get into my head? How did you know this was happening to me? How did you convey the pain that I'm feeling about where I've landed?" I've had men cry, and absolutely. There was a man, he told me he'd been living in his car. I'd been living in his car. And that was at MIT. He'd been living in his car.
This guy was a former high earner.
Yes.
Living in his car.
Living in his car.
So where are you financially now?
I would say a bit better. Okay. So it's still feast or famine. It is not the Cinderella story, bow on the end. I know that's what people want. I don't think it's going to be that for really any of us. Where I am is I can see a pathway forward. I like what I'm doing a lot. I feel like I am contributing. People are getting that affirmation. I feel like I am creating a really interesting casserole of work.
And you're making money by doing speaking engagements? I mean, consulting on this very issue?
So it's a combination. I sell some books.
Right.
Okay. I do some speaking. I teach. And then I have one remaining consultancy from before. The cobbling that together is enough to kind of keep me, I'm okay.
How you doing? I'm well. How you doing?
But according to White's friend Elijah, whom we bumped into at the park, she has found her purpose.
At first, it was like, I need help, you know. But then now she's got enough of a footing, and she see how there are millions like her. She, oh, I got a purpose. I got to do this.
Life hasn't turned out quite as White expected. She scrimps, doesn't save. But she's drummed up work that matters. You know that line was coming, right? Living a rich life on a modest income. And not faking normal anymore. This is economics correspondent Paul Salman, updating from Washington, D.C.